This is Mike Nardone. Grew up in Pebble Beach, Pacific Grove, California. Started on the radio at KSPB in 1983 on Super Soul Sunday, and then went on to KXLU down in Los Angeles, and The Beat, which was 92.3. At some point, worked at several record labels, and basically made a little decent career out of the music business for a while. So my first hip hop memory was my dad had just got his receiver back from the shop, had it like tuned up or whatever. He had the old tube joints, the Macintosh tube amps and stuff, and he would hook it up to the cable so we could get more stations. So we'd get KSLU, and that was a station out of San Mateo. And I was not so versed, I don't think musically. Like, I knew some rock music and maybe like what was going on pop-wise. And for some reason I found KSLU and just started listening and just started hearing records that I hadn't heard before. It was before I heard like Super Soul Sunday on KSPB, and I can't say there was a certain record that was like perked my ears up, but it was just the whole, that R&B, or what was going on in R&B, and the little hip hop that they played, it was sort of mixed in at that point. That was the start. It wasn't, I can't say it was a hip hop music movement or moment. It was a hip hop moment because it took me in that direction. It wasn't like I saw the Rocket video, or that all came later. I was already like stuck at that point, but it was just I guess hearing KSLU at that time, and it was probably 1979 or 1980. It was before I was in high school, and that like sprung me. That was just like the starting point. I was out of the starting blocks then, and it was all moving forward. So the beginning of KSPB for me was I think hearing the station. Like, I'd listen to Super Bowl Sunday, I'd play basketball, I'd shoot around outside and have the radio, like the boom box, the big boom box, and listen. So I was a fan already, and then going to school there, I knew that there was an opportunity for me to get on the station. I didn't know how, but I started. So I think probably like within the first week of school, I met this guy Cool P, who used to be on and he was like the rap guy, and we became friends. And on occasion, I'd go up there and hang out. Go to the Super Soul Sunday and just hang out with certain DJs and get to know them sort of just as people. And then so 83 I started. I was maybe the end of my sophomore year. I probably took the test. You had to take like a test, like learn the equipment, how to cue a record, how to turn on the mic, how to run the cart machines and all that stuff. So once I passed that test, I was basically eligible, and then it was you could fill in here and there, and then eventually as people graduated, you moved into slots and got your show. So that was it. So Super Soul Sunday was it's hard to say, it's hard to quantify for me because I was involved for so many years, but just as a fan, it was such an enjoyable thing. It was I think the music was great, and it wasn't just the hits. The way they programmed, or the way we programmed music, I think was a little bit different. They do like long blocks of slow songs and all that stuff, which was very cool. And then I remember like Willie Ray was, what was it? He had something like soap opera going on with his show, like Who Killed Dr. Love or whatever. There was some whole thing back in that was like 84, 83 or 84 or something. It was like insane. So there was insane personalities. And I don't think at some point I realized how popular it was when Sir Mix-a-Lot, like Posse on Broadway came out, and every call was from Seaside, and they just wanted to hear that song. So it was great in so many ways because it was a vehicle for a lot of people sort of to express themselves with music. And then I think for the community it was great because you didn't have to be tied down to what everyone else was playing. Though you heard some of that, you heard different things. You heard things that a 17, a 16, or an 18-year-old might expose you to, which you're not getting on a radio ever, you know. So KSPB, basically when I graduated high school in 1985, that was essentially the end. I think I'd go back and do shows from time to time, like if I was in town and either I knew someone was on or whatever, I'd try to get on. But I was like officially done in probably like June or July of '85, and then I moved to LA to go to Loyola Marymount University, and that's where KXLU is. And I think in '85 they just won like Rolling Stone's College Station of the Year or something like that, or maybe in '84. And so immediately, like the first day, like orientation, boom, where am I? I'm at the radio station, like hanging out, trying to meet people. And they didn't have a hip hop show, they had a funk show at the time, which I was like, whoa, that's sort of backwards. Like, you're like this cutting edge station, you're doing a funk show in 1985, hip hop's like expanding, blowing up, you know, not blowing up at that point, but still people are making records, it's viable. So I didn't get my show until '88, yeah, the fall, like this time, 1988, basically November of '88. I was on the AM station, I did that, I was like, okay, I'm done with that. I had an opportunity, I think after my sophomore year, I had an opportunity to take over what had been the funk show, because this other dude, Bashir, had come in there, and I'd be up there with them, but he wasn't a student. And basically the students, the management, the program director and the general manager had a problem with him for some reason, and they offered me the show, but I already had plans to go back to the Central Coast and work for the summer. So that sort of, I could have been, 2 years earlier, but I couldn't just bail on the job, I guess. I didn't have a place to live. It was I think probably April, and we got out of school in May, and they're like, oh, do you want to start a show? I'm like, shit, I can't start. Like, I already had all these plans, so I had to wait another 2 years. I guess one of the things I learned when I was at KXLU was I learned more of the role of the record label, and that there were hip hop or rap departments or whatever, and that was like, that opened my eyes to a whole new world and something I wanted to get into. So after college, I interned my senior year at RCA. For a semester or trimester, whatever schedule we were on, and then so I interned under this promo guy, and that was a sort of eye-opening experience. I met Carmelita Sanchez there because she was like the college rep for Arista, I think, at the time or something, and I was trying to interview for the Jive promo job back then that she ended up getting. She got the West Coast promo college person or whatever. Carmelita got that job, and we stayed in contact and whatever. And then she hooked up with Jerry Davis, who had been at ASCAP, and started Poetic Groove through. It was like the years of the imprint. It was when Irving Azoff started, I can't think of the name of the label now, but there were a bunch of little imprints starting up. So Jerry and Carmelita hired me at Poetic Groove in, I think, '91, and I worked there until it sort of demise, and did freelance promotion for Fourth and Broadway, worked like the first Mobb Deep record and the Fellowship record, Inner City Griots, and then what did I do? Then I got hooked up at, I think, Tough Break with Evan Forster, and that was through A&M, and then went to Profile and worked during the divorce of Corey and Steve. That was awesome. Did A&R there, and then sort of was out of it for a while, then got back at Jive. I mean, it was crazy, but there's a lot of things that went all sorts of directions, but went from promotions to A&R and then stopped. So the joint, or getting on the beat and doing the joint, was a weird sort of story, because Keith Naftali came down from KMEL to start programming the beat. The beat had a huge signal and was always programmed sort of as like a real soft R&B station for probably women 35, and Keith had blown up KML, made it real young sounding, real progressive music-wise, and wanted to do the same thing down in LA. So Michelle Sanasuso was the, God, what was she? I don't remember her title. I had met her when I worked at Poetic Groove when she was at RCA. I'd met her through one of Jerry's connections, Michael Williams. We had gone to lunch or something, and I met her. And so I knew her. I didn't know Keith, or I'd met her. I didn't know her. And then Michael Mixing Moore, the Militant Mix, who was, you know, old school LA cat, had secured like the head mixing position at the Beat when Keith came. He reached out to me. He was like, "You should meet Keith. You know, maybe there's something you can do at the station." I was like, "Cool." So I went in and met with Keith, and was like crazy nervous. And I think I brought him a tape of a fundraiser show at KXLU when India Davenport was on with me from Brand New Heavies, and it was real fun, like back and forth between me and her and whatever. And he dug it and was like, "I could see this working. You know, what do you have in mind?" So then I talked to King M's, and I talked to DJ Zen, Jeff Chang. So it was supposed to be like this three-headed monster, the three of us, and Keith was just like, "All right, sort of like, let's do." I don't remember like the particulars of the call or whatever, but you know, I put some stuff on paper. I already had given him sort of the air check of, at least conceptually, we probably talked about music a little bit, and we were on the air, you know, within, I mean, it happened quick. We were on the air within a couple months, and nervous. I was nervous as hell.
So, being a college radio DJ, I used to keep in touch with a lot of promoters from record labels, and new ones would call every once in a while, and I'd develop a relationship with them. So one day I got a call from a guy named Mike Nardone from Poetic Groove Records. I said, "Mike Nardone? Is this the same Mike Nardone from KSPB?" He said, "Oh, yeah. I figured you might have listened to my show. You're in Santa Cruz." I was like, "Yeah, man. Oh, wow. This is cool." It was really cool. So from then on, we just hit it off. So when I moved to LA in '94, Mike Nardone was doing KXLU, which he had been doing for a while, and he had also started doing 92.3 The Beat. He had a show called The Joint with King M's, and he used to bring by you know, different rappers, Razcast and the likes, to record drops or promos for the radio show. And that led for us to start doing some production work together, and we wound up doing a remix for Hurricane, a song called Coming Off, which was my first production work for the label Grand Royal, which is the Beastie Boys record label. After King M's wound up moving to New York, Mike asked me to be the DJ for The Joint, which lasted a short time, but it was lots of fun while we did it. And then after that point, I ended up being Mike's fill-in or substitute DJ occasionally for KXLU for We Came From Beyond. So Mike Nardone, like I said, he's a good friend of mine. From the minute we met, I mean, like back in KSPB days, I used to like his voice because he sounded like a surfer, local kind of person, but was also into hip-hop, which was sort of, I mean, I wasn't really a surfer, but I was from a surfer town, and I could identify with him a lot in that way. And he inspired me in that way to get on the radio as well. And then coming to LA and getting to know him better and working with him on the radio and production work and stuff like that. Mike Nardone's basically had the longest running college radio show in Los Angeles. Everyone in LA shows mad love and respect. I show nothing but mad love and respect to Nardeezy. Nardeezy's in the heezy.
Oh man, Mike Nardone. Now, Mike is such a funny dude off the air. You know, on the air, he's like real laid back and just like kind of like you don't think anything rattles him, or he doesn't like go too far either way as far as getting hyped up or mellowed out. But Mike is a funny dude, and you know, I've gotten to know him over the years, been to his radio show, hung out with him, and Mike is just a really good dude. And you know, I know he's not doing radio anymore, but I wish him all the best. When I got let go at KMXZ, and I was, you know, alerting record labels, I had to call record labels and tell them, said, you know, if you want to take me off your mailing list because I'm not on the radio at this point right now, you know, feel free to do that. And Mike was the only one of them, even though they may have done it, but he was the only one who told me point blank on the phone when I called him. He said, you know what, don't even worry about it. I'm going to keep you on the mailing list because I know you're going to be back on the radio. So Mike Nardone, man, I definitely appreciate that. And all the best, brother, man. I know you're doing your thing. You're taking care of your family. And you'll be back on radio, man. You'll be back. We came from beyond. We'll be back. So big up, Mike Nardone.
Well, as I mentioned, it takes an army of soldiers to make the music happen. Mike Nardone, the memories I have of him was knowing what he was doing at KSPB through my friends Kid Nice and Master RD. Just recently spoke to MC Cool P, and he said, man, Bob, we were so busy back then that we rarely got a chance to talk to each other, but we were both blowing up at different areas, and we were. They were doing one part of the peninsula, I was doing the other part, and every now and then we would do the whole peninsula, each of us, through dances and the interactions. I basically had one, but it was just really brief. I went to Lighthouse Records on Pacific Grove, and Mike Nardone was at the counter. He was working for a man named Hoggy, who was very open-minded to selling records, street-minded. City Hall, I believe he was ordering, but City Hall distributors had a street mind to find out what was hot on the street. And that's a memory that I have. I knew what he was doing. It was very evident. Super Soul Sundays was very well received in our Salinas area, and it was powerful. And I knew that while he was doing that, I had to keep doing my own thing here on the Friday nights in this part of the coast, part of the valley. And I would go in quite a bit into Marina and Seaside quite a bit, because some of my early beginnings are in Marina and Seaside. So I had really good knowledge of the area. You know, I would go in there quite a bit. Mike Nardone, props for what you've done in the industry, for what you've pursued, and you've done. I've read stuff on you, really good stuff, and you just keep pushing, and you really have influenced my people to listen to the hip hop. Really influence. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.